Hi, sociologists. It's Mrs. T again. And this is our final stretch. We are coming to the end of the semester soon, and you've got a lot of sociological knowledge behind your belt. And so we're kind of coming full circle with the last few topics that we're going to have time to address together between now and when we end for the semester. So I've already written an outline on the board back here of what we're going to talk about in this brief video together. We're going to talk about the sociological imagination. I think that it was day 2 in sociology class, the very first time we mentioned the sociological imagination, but we're coming full circle here because since the first time I mentioned it until now, I've told you that really the entire focus of the whole semester has been developing your sociological imagination because the course learning outcomes that we have, even though only one specifically mentions the sociological imagination, the other 3 of the 4 learning outcomes that we have for this class focus on particular content of the class, like social groups and social institutions, poverty, social inequality, global stratification, deviance and crime, other things that we've discussed in class so far. And all of that is basic background knowledge that you need under your belt so that you can practice using and developing and proving that you can have and do have a sociological imagination. So after all this semester that we've spent together, I hope there have been some very thought-provoking times when you've thought to yourself, wait a minute, I've never quite thought about life in general or society as a whole or certain topics the way we've discussed them in our class together. So if you've had one of those moments here or there about, I've never thought about that way before, well, it's because you were practicing developing your sociological imagination and you didn't even know it. So the rest of the topics that we discuss together are going to be about social institutions, which exist on the macro scale. If you look back to chapter 4 notes on the social structure that we live in or live under in society. So we're going to look at specific social institutions and how each social institution that we study connects to other social institutions to make a fabric that exists on the macro scale that covers all of us with a layer of norms, a layer of social facts, a layer of habits and conditions that guide our micro scale behavior and life experiences on a day-to-day basis. So, the sociological imagination, somewhere in your notes, like I said, probably day 2, you've got a definition for it. I am sure that we didn't quite say, or I didn't quite explain it the way I'm going to explain it to you now. So this definition, or this explanation, if you would rather call it that, should say exactly the same thing as your original definition that you wrote down way back at the beginning of the semester. It should say the same thing as this does in meaning, even though I've used different words to describe it here. So, sociological imagination, make sure that you know it's not about make-believe. If I ask you to write me a sentence or 2 describing what the sociological imagination is, don't say it's the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and imagine what their life is. No, whatever the game show noise is that says wrong answer, beep, beep. So no, it's not about make-believe or imagining anything like a kindergarten student is going to have imagination time and creative time. That's not what we're talking about as college students. What we're talking about is developing your ability to think, developing your ability to make informed connections between different pieces of information that you now know because you've gone through your higher education process. And the sociological imagination is about the ability to think, to make connections, to identify the junction point, to identify and explain the connections between macro and micro portions of society. So, for instance, let's go back to probably an explanation that I used at the very beginning of the semester. Why are you in college? Now, sometimes we have a very personal micro way to answer that at the very beginning of the semester. Because, oh, my parents are proud of me because I'm here, they wanted a better life for me, or my father's an accountant and the only way I can be an accountant too is getting a degree, and so that's why I'm here. So it's always, at the beginning of the semester, very personal explanations about why you're in college. But if you develop your sociological imagination and zoom out, we can look around and we can say, wait a minute, tons of people across the nation right now have a similar story about being in college and why they're in college. But why is it that you find so many people across the population who are in college? Why can't you just go into the workforce out of high school and get the money that you want, the promotion potential that you want, the prestige of title and position that is desirable in society? The answer is, it's because our social structure, the norms of our society, our social facts are not designed to allow that pattern of life experience to take place. Instead, there is another macro level pattern of social structure that is in place in which you must earn a higher level degree, an associate's or a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, after high school in order to even be remotely considered for the kinds of jobs that give you social position, that you are respectable, that give you a degree of promotion potential so that you can start out at one salary and end at another, and a salary that is desirable so that you can have material things that are so much a part of American identity. So the reason you're in college right now, maybe you do have a very personal reason that feels unique to yourself. But are there macro scale reasons why that college path was a goal for you, your family, your kids, your spouse, whoever you're doing this for? Society is making the choice for you to do it as much as you, your spouse, your parents, your kids, whoever it is you think you're doing this for on a personal basis. Why is that choice important? It's because on the macro scale, the norms, the social facts that we live under, the blanket of social structure is shaped in a certain way that is our path in life if we want those things that I enumerated a minute ago. So each of the things that we talk about from now until the end of the semester, and there will be many lectures still between now to the end of the semester. I'm sorry, my dog is squeaking his toy in the background. I'll finish this quickly so it's not too distracting. But we're going to talk about many different social institutions between now and the end of the semester. Social institutions exist on the macro scale, and you and I exist on the micro scale. We are going to examine the connections between all the social institutions that we discuss and the connections they have to each other and how that affects our lives also. So, sociological imagination people, go back in your notes and review the first time you've got it written. I think flip back to chapter 1, page 2, something like that, and read the section in that original chapter to freshen your memory about sociological imagination. And I will see you next time for another very enlightening, I hope, sociology lesson. Bye.